Before we talk overlays or branches, we need the basics. What are Helm and Kustomize, and why does almost every Kubernetes team end up using one or both? That is this lesson. By the end of this lesson, you will know what Helm is, what Kustomize is, how they differ, and where they meet inside a tool called Argo CD. We will not deploy anything. We will only render manifests, the same way you check your work before a real release. What job are Helm and Kustomize actually doing? The same job. Kubernetes runs pods, and every pod is described in YAML. But a real application is many objects at once, a deployment, a service, a config map, often much more. Writing all of that YAML by hand, for every environment, simply does not scale. So both tools exist to generate the final YAML for you, from something easier to maintain. Here is the problem both tools solve. The moment you have more than one environment, say, dev, test, and prod, you have more than one copy of your manifests. Change one port number, and you are editing it 3 times. 3 copies become 5, mistakes creep in, and the copies drift apart. What you need is a generator that holds one source of truth and produces each environment from it. That is exactly what Helm and Kustomize are. Picture it like this. One application, but 3 separate copies of its manifests, dev, test, and prod. The only thing keeping them in sync is a human, manually copying changes from one to the next. Every manual copy is a chance to drift, to drop a change, to introduce a typo. 3 copies, maintained by hand, will always drift apart over time. That is the disease, and Helm and Kustomize are the cure, one source of truth, generated into each environment. Meet Helm. Helm calls itself the package manager for Kubernetes. The way it works, you write Go templates, and you write values. The templates have holes in them, and the values fill those holes. At build time, Helm stitches the values into the templates and produces finished YAML. You run Helm install to apply it to a cluster, or Helm template to just print the YAML and inspect it. A Helm package is called a chart. A Helm chart has 3 parts worth knowing. Chart.yaml holds the chart's name and version. Values.yaml holds the default values. And a folder called templates contains the Go templates, full of holes waiting to be filled. When you render, Helm reads the values, pushes them into the templates, and outputs plain Kubernetes YAML. Anything you can express in a template, you can express here: loops, conditionals, defaults. Here is Helm as a picture. 2 things go in, the values, and the templates with their holes. Helm reads the values, fills every hole, and one thing comes out: finished Kubernetes YAML. The whole step is deterministic and local. You can run it 100 times, with different values, and watch exactly how the output changes. That is what makes Helm predictable. Here is the Helm idea and code. The first block is values.yaml, a repository and a tag. The second block is a template with 2 holes, written in Go template syntax. The holes say, take the repository from values, take the tag from values, and join them. When Helm renders, those holes become a real image string. Change the tag in one place, and every template that uses it updates automatically. To see the result without touching a cluster, you run Helm template. You point it at the chart, and you pass 1 or more values files. It prints the finished YAML to your terminal. That is the whole render step: fast, local, no permissions needed. You read it, you compare it against another environment, and only then do you apply it for real. Here are the Helm commands you will actually type. Helm version to check it is installed. Helm create to scaffold a brand new chart. Helm lint to validate the chart before you do anything with it. Helm template to render the YAML to your terminal, no cluster needed. And Helm install when you are ready to apply it for real. 5 commands cover almost everything you will do day to day. Values in, manifests out. One source of truth. Now meet Kustomize. The big surprise: Kustomize has no templating language at all. It is built right into kubectl, so you already have it. Instead of templates with holes, you write plain, valid Kubernetes YAML, and then you write patches that modify it. Kustomize stacks a base set of resources underneath one or more overlays, applies the patches, and prints the merged result. No Go, no curly braces, no holes. A Kustomize project has a base folder and an overlays folder. The base holds the common YAML, the things every environment shares. Each overlay holds only the deltas, the bits that differ, written as patches. When you run kubectl Kustomize against an overlay, Kustomize takes the base, lays the overlay on top, applies the patches, and prints one merged set of manifests. The base stays untouched, and Kustomize as a picture. 2 things go in, the base, and 1 overlay patch. Kustomize layers the patch on top of the base, merges them, and one thing comes out, the same finished YAML. The promise is identical to Helm's. The difference is purely how you express the change. Helm fills holes, Kustomize patches objects. Here is a Kustomize patch. It looks like ordinary Kubernetes YAML, because it is. This patch says, for the deployment called checkout, set replicas to 3. Everything else in that deployment is inherited from the base. You only ever write down what you want to change, and Kustomize figures out how to merge it. No template syntax to learn, because there is none. Rendering looks just as simple. You run kubectl Kustomize, point it at an overlay, and it prints the merged YAML. Again, local, fast, read-only. You never need cluster credentials to check your work. Both tools give you the same guarantee. You can see exactly what would be applied, before you apply anything. And the Kustomize commands. Kubectl Kustomize help, because Kustomize ships inside kubectl Kubectl Kustomize to render the merged YAML. Again, no cluster needed. Kubectl apply with the -k flag to apply it. And kubectl diff with -k to preview what would change. The glue that ties a base to its patches is a small file called customization.yaml. You will meet it in detail later. Plain YAML in, plain YAML out. No magic. So what is the real difference? Helm interpolates values into templates. It has a real templating language, with loops and conditionals. Kustomize patches plain YAML objects. It has no language at all, just a set of merge rules. Helm is more powerful and more expressive. Kustomize is simpler and easier to review, because every file is always valid YAML. Neither is universally better. They make different trade-offs. Let us compare them directly. The base layer in Helm is values.yaml. In Kustomize it is the base folder. The per environment difference in Helm is a second values file. In Kustomize it is an overlay patch. Power comes from templating in Helm, and from patching in Kustomize. And the render command is Helm template versus kubectl Kustomize. Different syntax, the very same discipline underneath. Here is the single most important idea in this whole series. One base, the shared source of truth, sits underneath everything. On top of it, 3 thin overlays, dev, test, and prod. Each overlay carries only its deltas. From that one base plus 3 small layers, you render 3 complete sets of manifests. Hold this picture in your head. Every later lesson, overlays, promotion, trunk-based delivery, is just a deeper look at this one shape. When do you pick which? Reach for Helm when you have heavy parameterization, many knobs, many optional features, one chart reused across many teams. Reach for Kustomize when the differences between environments are small, and you want every change to be an easy-to-review YAML diff. And here is the secret, many teams use both. They take an existing Helm chart, then layer Kustomize overlays on top for their environment-specific tweaks. 2 tools. 1 job. Pick the trade-off that fits. This is where the 2 tools meet. Argo CD is a GitOps controller for Kubernetes. It watches a Git repository, and it applies whatever it finds there to your cluster, automatically. The important part for us, Argo CD renders Helm charts natively, and it renders Kustomize overlays natively too. So whichever tool you choose, Argo CD can take care of the apply step. You just point it at the right place in your repository. Here is the full GitOps loop. Argo CD watches a Git repository. Whenever the repository changes, Argo CD renders the manifests, using Helm or Kustomize, whichever the repository holds, and applies them to the cluster. And it works the other way too. If someone edits the cluster by hand, Argo CD detects the drift and reconciles it back to what Git declares. Git wins. Always. Here is Argo CD consuming a Helm chart. The application points at a Git repository and names a chart. Under the Helm key, you pass values, exactly the values file idea from earlier. Argo CD renders the chart with those values, and applies the result to the cluster. Change the values in Git, and Argo CD reconciles the change for you. Now the same controller with Kustomize, and it is even simpler. The application points at a Git repository and gives a path, overlay/prod. Argo CD runs the equivalent of kubectl Kustomize on that path, and applies the merged manifests. Same controller, same GitOps flow, both tools supported out of the box. Argo CD renders both. Git is the source of truth. Here is how you try this yourself, right now, with no cluster. Run Helm version to confirm Helm is installed. Run kubectl Kustomize help to confirm Kustomize is already there. It ships inside kubectl, then take any chart and run Helm template against it, and take any overlay and run kubectl Kustomize against it. Both print YAML to your terminal. That is the entire loop you need to practice. Quick recap. Helm and Kustomize both exist to generate Kubernetes YAML from something easier to maintain. Helm interpolates values into Go templates, powerful and expressive. Kustomize patches plain YAML, simple and review friendly. And Argo CD renders both, so Git becomes the single source of truth for what runs in your cluster. A small exercise to cement this. Run Helm version and kubectl Kustomize help. Then find any Helm chart you already use, at work or in a tutorial. Render it with Helm template, and actually read the YAML it produces. Notice how changing a value changes the output. Once you can read rendered manifests comfortably, every later idea in this series will click into place. Read the rendered YAML. Everything else builds on this. That is the foundation, 2 tools, 1 job. Next, we name the disease this series cures, the branch per environment anti-pattern.